Hey team, welcome to another episode, and we've got a very special episode today. I am privileged to welcome on former Premiership winner Scott Sattler. Scott, how are you doing today, my friend?
Oh, good, Luke. Yeah, good to join you.
Yeah, no, I was like I mentioned off air. I'm very grateful for you coming on today, and I just thought it'd be perfect time to have you on. Obviously, leading up to the finals, you obviously have a pretty good history in terms of the NRL final success. And we'll start, and this is the first thing I want to touch on. It doesn't just start with you, it starts on your dad, obviously, etched into grand final folklore with the broken jaw, I believe, in the 1970 grand final, if that's correct.
Yeah, 1970, yep.
Yeah. Just there's a lot to cover with this moment. Obviously, it's a moment that gets brung up every time we head into, grand final. But just to put it this way, what does this moment mean to you as a family and for your dad as well?
Well, Luke, growing up in a rugby league household, ever since I was born, I basically grew up in dressing sheds. So understanding the rugby league landscape comes as part of our family. So when it comes to my dad and how big of a grand final occasion is, I've always, from a very, very young age, I realised how important grand final day is. Even when you're young enough to really realise a lot about what goes on in life, I did realise in rugby league that grand final day meant something pretty special to a lot of people, fans and the players alone. And then, when I got the opportunity to be graded in rugby league, outside of wanting to play for your state, I think, from a team perspective, to fight so hard to try and make a final system, and then all of a sudden get the opportunity to play in a grand final. It's just, this time of year is pretty special to us. My dad was fortunate enough to play in 6 grand finals, 5 consecutive grand finals, and won 4 of those 6 grand finals, and 4 of them as captain. So, and then at the end of my career, I get the opportunity to play in a grand final, and fortunately enough, successful. So, it means a fair bit to us. And come grand final week every year, my dad and I always sit around and discuss at quite length about grand finals and experiences. Different things keep popping up each and every year that we haven't spoken about the year before. So it's a pretty important time in our household.
No, I can definitely understand why it would be that. Now, I'd just love to talk to you about your premiership win and obviously the tackle. I think now, I was trying to remember this before coming on, but I think I remember you talking about this maybe a long time ago in an interview where you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you don't really like talking about it too much because you think maybe it like overshadowed the win of such. Is there any comments towards that? Do you think the tackle was kind of got a lot more publicity than you probably thought in the moment?
Yeah, I thought at the time, I remember getting interviewed by Andrew Voss after the game, and he spoke about it. And even at the time and even after the game, I didn't realise it was going to be such a topic of conversation for a long time. Still today, it's just something that as a player you're asked to do, and my position, especially as a lock forward, you're asked to play that role, which, lock forwards, the old lock forwards, and it's starting to get back towards what the old lock forwards used to be like. That's basically what your job was meant to do. So for me, and still today, it doesn't, it was special for me because I was leaving the club, and then on an individual basis, every time I go back there, the fans appreciate what you did for the club and a special moment. But really internally, I feel as though it did take away from a lot of the attention that Luke Prittis should have been getting. And that was still today, it's one of the greatest individual performances I've seen. Usually, we talk about our fullbacks and our halfbacks, our 5'8", whatever it may be, but for a hooker to dominate a game the way that he did, and he was the only player in our team that had won a grand final, had played in a grand final. So, to set up 2 tries and score a try himself. And what a lot of people don't realise, he did that with a punctured lung as well, which he hurt 2 weeks prior to the grand final. So, it was a pretty special moment for Luke. And at times, I sometimes feel as though the moment that I had took a lot of the exposure away that Luke should have been getting.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to cut you off then. Was Luke Prittis, was he playing, did he play his grand final? Was it the Broncos in 2000? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, like I talked to you off here, I started watching in 2009, but I went back and watched 2003. And, I haven't gone back and watched every single grand final performance, but that's one that sticks out for me. He was superb. But to be fair, though, I think your moment gets the spotlight it deserves. But yeah, that was actually a question I was going to bring up is there any moment in particular that does do you believe gets overshadowed where that was so influential to you guys getting there? It could be in the game, like you talked about with Prittis, or it could be something that happened in the season or something that kind of happened even before that. Because I know the previous 2 seasons, you guys were sitting outside the top 8. I believe you guys might have been wooden spooners 2 years previously.
Yeah, in 2001, we were wooden spoon. 2002, I think we finished equal second last, I think it was. And then even after about 4 or 5 rounds, I remember we had a bye in round 6. But even leading into round 5, and we had a last-minute win against South Sydney, who weren't the best team. We beat them on the bell. Scored a try on the bell to beat them. We were still sitting in the bottom 4, I think, from memory. I think we were paying 101-1 to win the comp at that stage. And so then we went on a run where we won 8 in a row. We beat the Warriors in round 7 in New Zealand, and we beat them comfortably, and they played in the grand final the year before. And we actually thought we're a chance of making the finals this year with this team if we continue doing what we're doing. We had really good youth, a lot of really good young players that have come through the South system, Penrith system, like a lot of the Penrith players today. And then we had a lot of us older guys like myself and Ryan Girdler and Martin Lang and co. So, but a turning point for me, I thought, was we had to play Parramatta in the last round of the regular season, and we had to beat them to get the minor premiership. Right. The Roosters had been beaten the night before against the Raiders, and so we're both neck and neck. And we had to win to get the wooden spoon. And anyway, and Parramatta had to beat us by 18 to make the top 8. And I remember Ryan Girdler got sin-binned in about the first 3 or 4 minutes. And I remember in the first 15 minutes, I think they were leading, might have been 14-0. And Ryan Girdler came back on the field and we ended up beating them 48-16 or something. We just went on this rampage for the last 3 quarters of the game. And I knew at the end of that game when we won the minor premiership, I just thought, no, this team's ready. We've become a little bit more battle-hardened throughout the year. And that was a real turning point, that Parramatta game, when we were behind by 16. Many thought we were going to panic in the moment. Then all of a sudden, we just flicked a switch and we beat them really comprehensively to win the minor premiership. And then we played the Brisbane Broncos in the first final, and they had a gale force wind behind them in the first half. But in the second half, I never forget, Phil Gould said, I reckon Broncos need to score another 12 or 14 points. And they were leading at that stage. And just as he said that, Ryan Girdler took an intercept from about 60 metres out, and that got us going again. So it was those 2 moments I really thought, they were the real, we were working up to the end of the season, and we win the minor premiership, and then we're behind the 8 ball against the Broncos. And then Ryan Girdler, like he always did throughout his career, he took this amazing intercept, ran 60, scored underneath the goalpost, and we're back in the game, and they didn't stop us from then. So those 2 moments stick out for me.
Awesome. That is a great insight to kind of, seeing those moments that, like you summed up, is kind of gave you guys a self-belief that you guys could get over the hump. And I like to kind of focus our attention on this year, and most importantly, your former side, the Penrith Panthers. Obviously, last year, pretty similar to yourself, and they get to the 2003 side. They come from outside the top 8, and then all of a sudden they found their way as minor premiers, but couldn't get the job done. This year, they're backed up with a sensational season. Where do you think Penrith sit right now? Like, are you obviously sitting second? The whole year it was them and Melbourne kind of in the conversation to be premiership winners. How are you feeling as a former Penrith player about their chances of taking it all?
I think they're in a better position this year than they were last year. I think, funnily enough, their team was pretty settled last year, but I think it's even more settled this year. They were disjointed for a while with Nathan being out for a while, and also Brian To'o out for a while, and Jerome Luai just losing his way after the Origin series. But I feel as though that Nathan Cleary and Brian To'o have gone to another level, a complete another level. I think Dylan Edwards, their fullback's gone to another level. I think James Fisher-Harris has gone to another level. So, with that year of experience last year and learning how to manage being a team that everyone's coming after, it's really hard to manage that. And then to now be a team that feel really comfortable with being in that position, that they're, if it makes sense, they're comfortable with being uncomfortable. And not a lot of teams can feel that way. So I think they're a better team this year. And I think they deserve to go into the final series as seeded number one, as opposed to Melbourne, who win the minor premiership. I just think Melbourne have been a little bit off. Still winning games, but just a little bit off compared to what we're used to seeing them. So this Penrith side, I think it all stems on Nathan. If a team has the ability to rattle the cage of Nathan and get under his skin and get him off his game, you'll beat Penrith. But you've got to be a really good team to take a kid like Nathan Cleary away from that comfort zone, because he's just an exceptional young athlete. He's always so composed and never really ever gets too excited in the moment. And you've got to have those in those key positions. So I think they're moving along smoothly, actually, and finishing second actually is not a bad position. You're going to play South Sydney without Latrell Mitchell, and it's probably not a bad position to be in.
Yeah, I honestly, and you probably don't notice, I am a Storm fan, but I agree with you. I think they're sitting in a very good position. I believe they are probably sitting the prettiest at the moment. And you kind of touched on it then, and will be our final thoughts before you have to go. What is your biggest concern? I think you mentioned it there, where if a team is able to unsettle Nathan Cleary, that is, obviously going to be a concern. But is there anything else that sticks out for you? A team, a player, is there any concern that comes to mind?
I've got a concern about Viliame Kikau. Now, I think he's an amazing player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's an exceptional player and a great player to watch. I just feel as though that in the finals, he needs to be the player that takes real ownership of the side. It's Nathan's team. We know that. And it's Nathan Nappy Coruscant's team. But outside of that, someone else has got to be able to take that pressure off those two players, even though they welcome pressure. And Viliame I don't know whether he realises how crucial he is to the Penrith Panthers' success. So I think Viliame needs to say to himself, I've got to go to another level myself, a level of intensity and a level of involvement. As I mature as a rugby league player, this is a player that's going to command close to $1 million a year when he comes off contract at the end of next year. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether Penrith are going to be able to fit him under the salary cap. But in saying that, he needs to prove to people that he's $1 million player, and he needs to do it through the finals on consecutive weeks.
Yeah.
You can't just wait till grand final day. You've got to do it for consecutive weeks. Now, we had a player at Penrith called Tony Portua. Yeah. Big long hair, played in the second row, 6'4", one of the most amazing athletes I've ever seen. And Viliame's in the same position as Tony Portua is. Tony Portua had to say to himself, well, I'm either going to be a leader and take control of this team, or I'm going to let everyone else do it. And he just became the most destructive back row in the competition. Viliame is sitting on that precipice right now. Which way do I want to go? So he needs to prove to everyone through this final series that he's willing to go to a completely new level that we haven't seen Viliami when it comes to his destructive power.
Yeah, no, I think that is a fair point. And yeah, hey, Scott, just got one last question. I've written down this on my notes, and I'd love to know, might be putting you on the spot, but is there a player in the game that reminds you of yourself? Is there anyone particular, and you say there's a little bit of Scott Sattler in me player?
I'd love to say Tom Trbojevic, but not Tom Trbojevic. Dale Finucane.
Oh, good shout.
Yeah, Dale Finucane plays a different sort of game to me, but I look at Dale. I've always been a huge admirer of Dale, and that's why he's my favourite player in the comp, because I see the way that he's developed his game to not only being a really good workhorse and getting through so much work, but he's also introduced the passing game into his game as well. He sort of acts as that link to the halves, and I've really liked that about his game. Takes the pressure off guys like Munster and Jerome Hughes, be able to link the plays up like Victor Radley does and Cam Murray does and Isaiah Yeo, those sort of players. So, yeah, I've always admired Dale for a long time in his career, because he's just always been that guy that's willing to do all the work that some of his other teammates don't want to do. And that's what I took a lot of pride in as a player. I used to love being there for my teammates, and just at any stage anyone needed a rest, whether the dummy half needed a rest, whether the 5/8 needed a rest from his kicking game, I'd jump in and do that. And so I see Dale as the same sort of player, that he just likes to be there for his teammates and do whatever workload he has to do to make it easy for his key players. And, that's why I've always admired him.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair reason, man. And I always, I made a post earlier this year actually thinking about Dale Finucane a bit more in depthly, and obviously being from New Zealand, the All Blacks, is kind of front and centre. I compared him to Richie McCaw in terms of just his, gets in there, does the dirty work, is just a guy that is a role model, and he just does everything right. He's an honest guy. All players want to play with him, and I think Dale Finucane definitely resembles that as well. Hey, Scott, I think we'll leave it there. Obviously, you're a busy man. I really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Obviously, you still got your own little radio shows as well, so it's a pleasure to still be hearing from you. And thank you very much, mate.
No, anytime, Luke. Good to catch up.
Awesome. Cheers, legends.